Hello everyone, welcome to the Tech Podcast series. This is Lakshit Pant from Azure Developer Community powered by Microsoft. In this Tech Podcast series, we have been inviting industry leaders, listen to their experience, what they have been doing in the industry, what kind of products that they are building, learning from their experiences, what's going in the market, and how do they see the future in terms of AI and whatnot, right? In different product categories. For today's podcast, we have our industry leaders, Mr. Rohit Yadav, and with whom we'll be speaking on different aspect of technology, different aspect of digital technologies. And to quickly start this podcast, I would request Rohit if you could just quickly introduce yourself first.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Lakshit, for having me here in the podcast and talking to a bunch of folks who've listening to this and follow this very closely. So my name is Rohit Yadava. I'm actually the Chief Operating Officer at MSys Technologies, and I'm currently based out of Sydney. Previously worked with companies like Infosys and Capgemini across different geographies, US, India, Asia Pacific. So, had a multitude of roles that I've played. Across engineering, technology, consulting, business development. Excited to be part, of this
Yes.
podcast to talk to you.
Wow, definitely it's my pleasure. When I was doing my homework for the podcast, right, I was just scrolling through your profile and I saw a great, very experienced and the kind of experience that you bring to the table. Speaking about the, how you got started with technology, right, and how has been your experience so far as a leader, and how do you see what has been your leadership style when it comes to people, right? What has been your experience? Yeah.
Sure. So, as you play different roles in different organizations, right? You evolve as a leader, right? And it's these are the learnings that come along the way, right? For me, from my leadership philosophy standpoint, right, I like to set the bar high, um, and I then try to achieve those outcomes, right? While being mindful of the humane aspects, right? So for me, it's what I call as the triple E philosophy, right? So set clear expectations, strive for excellence,
Okay.
and then lead with empathy, right? So this is something that has been something that has evolved over the years, right? But I do believe in this philosophy a lot, and all my additions, all the way I look at technology and how it impacts our clients and our employees is with the same way.
And working as a I want you to dive deep on the CEO role, because I saw you have been managing the, you have been overseeing pre-sales, HRIT, information, security part and operations part, right? What kind of responsibilities do you really cater to, because it's a very diversified, right? And how do you manage your time, working on all these particular roles, managing all these teams?
Sure. Yeah. So, see, as Chief Operating Officer at MSys, I drive our technology delivery, our solution engineering, and pre-sales for our digital function, our human resources function, our internal IT, our information security, and our overall operations across different offices all over the world. Right. Uh, I think. While managing all of this, right, I think one of my key focus areas is to look at corporate and business strategy formulation and implementation, right? So my goal is to actually formulate a strategy and share it and socialize it with everyone in the company, right? So that everyone's clear on what they need to achieve as an organization and for their teams and for their personal growth too, right? So for me, that's my key focus area, right? But then, once you formalize or strategy, you got to also implement it during the year, right? So I spend a lot of time in collaborating with cross-functional teams, right? And different departments. So it is important that all those teams and departments understand where we are heading, what they need to achieve in their silos, and what we need to achieve as an organization, right? And so that's where most of my time goes, right? And I think it's important that I give equal uh, importance to all of these different areas, right? Because these are all parts of this of our of the organization, right? And they'll all help us succeed, right? So that's where my time goes. That's where my focus is as a CEO.
Even when we talk about a simple, I'll get just set up a context here. Even if we are writing a simple blog, right, when you used to ideate a lot, there are a couple of checklists that we have to keep in mind, right? When it comes to human and especially about people management, or maybe giving assigning a task, setting up the expectations, what kind of checklist do you bring to the table when it comes to the organization's growth perspective, right? So when you make a plan, what are those pointers that you keep in your mind? So this is where we have to head to, and this is the basic underline that we have to keep in our mind.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, right? Every company and every industry has their own challenges, has their own um, competition in their industry, right? So it's very important to figure out what works, in that industry and that segment, right? For a technology services company like us, right, we focus on um, you know expansion to different markets, to different geographies, to different technology areas, right? For us, the most important thing is to grow our capabilities in different offerings, right, that we provide to our customers, right? So for us, that's the key element of it, right, where we look at enabling our capabilities to be able to provide better services to our clients, right? So that's where our focus is. So all our checklist, all our strategies are all based on that, right? We look at those being our guidelines and principles around what everything else is based out of, right? So we focus a lot on that. For us, being the best at what we do from a technology offerings and technology services standpoint is our key goal at the end of the day.
Wow. And I also saw you have been pretty much very active on socials, right? I just wanted to know your experience with, for any founders or leaders like yourself, how has been, at current, at the moment, at present, right? How important is it to, build a social profile, make yourself an identity, like a social platform like LinkedIn, right? I saw your LinkedIn, it's quite active. I saw a couple of posts you talking about SaaS and whatnot. We'll talk about that as well. But how do you think, is it really that important, or does it help from in a B2B, because your organization deals in a B2B aspect? So does it help in any manner from the sales perspective, from a PR perspective, or anything?
Yes, yes. I think a very good question and very pertinent in this, in the kind of technology, the ways, the technology shaping of the social media
Right.
elements, right? Uh, See, for a leader like me, it is very important for me to be out there talking to our clients, talking to our employees, talking to people who follow us as a company and as an
Right.
organization, right? And even interacting with other folks in the technology side or on the leadership side. And this is a forum with which we can do that, right? It definitely helps to share what we are doing as a company and what we are doing to enable technology adoption across industries, because a lot of our clients, a lot of our employees are watching that space very closely, whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's Instagram or Twitter or whatever, right? And they are all following that very closely. So it's very important for us to be out there sharing our experience with them very openly and transparently, right? And in a way, getting a lot of valuable insights from them too, right? So it's not only a one-way street. You get a valuable insights from a lot of other folks, and I do the same. I follow a lot of influencers, a lot of good technology folks or leaders in the industry, and learn from them too, right? So it's definitely a very good medium to share ideas and learn from it.
Wow. And speaking about the now technology and trend landscape and trend perspective, if you can could quickly highlight the current trend you observe in the industry that you work in, and the where you see there is a scope of the new innovation that is coming to the from a digital perspective, and what are the potential impact of all these technology, all these new innovation that's happening in the industry on business aspects.
Sure, sure. Um, See, the way, I mean, there are definitely a lot of trends out there, right? From a technology standpoint, it's actually every year we see so many new and emerging technologies come up, right? In fact, it's difficult to sometimes figure out which one's really going to change the landscape and by how much, right? If you go back a few years, AI was very prevalent, right? People were talking about it, but if you look at the Gartner hype cycle, right, it was hyped up to a certain extent, but the use cases on the floor were not there, right?
That
But right now, if you look at it, definitely AI and artificial intelligence and the Gen AI, especially Gen AI, right, is definitely the most emerging trend, right? And there are definitely good business use cases out there which companies are adopting. And I think that's the difference that you can see over the last few years. Uh, if I look at the technology trends, right, I would say that there are a lot of technologies out there which non-technical people were not able to understand very well, right?
okay.
But what I can see now, right, that there are technology trends emerging which are democratizing software development, democratizing technology per se, right? Which means a lot of non-technical folks are able to take advantage and leverage technology, which they couldn't do it a few years back, right? They used to depend highly on technical people to do it, right?
Right.
And I would say the major technology trend that is making that happen is definitely Gen AI, right? The generative AI aspects of it, right? Which are helping, um, the common man leverage AI in everything, in small things, right? To improve their productivity, to create do simple tasks and things like that, right? Uh, so I think that's one trend which is emerging in the last year and a half, right? And um, even for even from a software development standpoint, right? The emergence of platforms like low code, no code platforms, right? And
Right. Yeah.
which which have definitely democratized software development, right? People who don't need to even know coding to be able to build applications, build platforms, right? So I think that element is really standing out. Of course, there are other emerging trends. There's always this talk about automation, right? But
Mm.
the way that RPA platforms have taken it to the next level, right? The whole robotic process automation piece of it has really transformed the way automation is going to be addressed in the industry, right? Even all mundane and repetitive tasks are being, automated, right? In fact, a lot of our conversations with our clients and prospects is around these elements, right? Of course, they want to take advantage of AI and Gen AI, but also around automation, right? Earlier, automation or mundane tasks was something that was not that. used to take time and effort, right? May not even give that much value at the end of the day. But with the kind of tools that are out there right now, it can be done very quickly, in a very cost-effective manner, right? So I think that's really been another emerging trend, which is really changing the industry.
From a as a leaders, maybe sitting out there in the industry, right? How do opt any maybe the AI application any particular industry? Let's take it HR or maybe uh, so how the discussion flows. And I just wanted to know the flow of how in the adoption of in the let's take about the your industry, right? How does it goes there inside the industry? So if there is any, if you want to
Sure.
adopt any particular AI software, and how does it goes, how the conversion flows?
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, it's actually a very good question for us from an industry perspective, because we go back 4 5 years, right? AI was still the most emerging trend at that time. But the conversations at that time were not to the level of a business use case. The conversations at that time were to the level of, okay, I know the clients who is talk about, I know I want to leverage AI, right? But I don't know how to, right? And I think where it has evolved to right now is there are a lot of very consultative discussions with clients around AI, right? Uh, we basically have started to talk about specific business use cases in their particular industry or their particular company for their particular business model. And I think that's the change that has happened in the last few years. If you look at the conversation that happens currently is around, okay, I understand that I have a problem, right? Or I know there is a use case out there which is maybe very small, but can we utilize AI or ML to be able to, bring some value to this, right?
Right.
And look at the ROI, right? What's the return on investment if I make this change, right? And the way we work on it is have consultative discussions with clients on that. Look at doing a small proof of concept initially, right? To make sure that there's enough value coming from implementing AI in that particular business case, right? It could be a few weeks, it could be a couple of months, depending on the complexity of the use case, right? But once you do that, once you have proven that the use case, can be implemented and there is value, then we go on to full blown implementation that then goes into production, right? And we took the same thing with one of there was an energy management company, a big one, which has offices globally, right? And we were looking at a couple of years back working with them on certain use cases. So we looked at a bunch of use cases initially. We brainstormed and said, okay, there's a 10, 15 of them. Chose one of them first, right? And said, okay, let's do a small proof of concept. It was around actually finding defects in PCB, right? In the manufacturing of PCBs, right? And through image processing and all. And so we did the POC. There was definitely value in it. And then it was productionized after a few months, right, of actually implementing and testing it comprehensively, right? So I think that's the difference. And then we took another second use case. So what happened was that the first use case definitely built confidence in the fact that AI could actually generate value and improve outcomes for them. And then we took up the second. So now we are actually working with them on the third or fourth use case. And I think that's how
Wow.
the conversations are flowing with some of our customers.
It's more like a step-by-step process. Now you also have mentioned earlier about the no code, low code, right? And again, I saw a recent post about SaaS, and I saw a couple of I heard this somewhere in the news, like maybe the why the a small country like Poland are very successful, right? Because they have so many, I- in some sense, so many unicorns coming from them because of all the SaaS that they have built. So many Neuralink and a couple of from the HubSpot is there. So what are your thoughts about next evolution of SaaS industry in India? How positive you are about it?
No, I think I'm very positive about the SaaS industry. I think India has shown uh, a lot of maturity and leadership, and how SaaS platforms are started up, managed, and scaled up. I think one thing to learn from the Indian uh, industry is about how you can scale something to an extreme extent, right? And the amount of challenges that the industry or SaaS industry faces in India is far higher than any part of the globe, right? So if you can succeed in that kind of an environment, you kind of definitely can succeed in any other global environment, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So if you see some of these, they're becoming. In fact, you see so many of these startups, and the industry at large is doing very well, right? And they're getting a lot of global clients, both in the B2B and B2C space. And I think there's definitely more to come, right, in the years ahead, right? Given the learnings that some of these SaaS companies have had.
Right. And when we bring to such more, at mass level, right, there is always, with every industry there is always a challenge and opportunities, right? I just wanted to know from you, like, how do you address these challenges and opportunities faced by any industry, particularly in the concept of rapid technological advancement? So suppose, if, like, let's suppose every day there is new tech that is coming up, right, or maybe new technology that is coming up, that a new trend that is coming up, how do you manage to upskill your, maybe, workforce, that they stand up to the mark? Usually these people, if you put them into some certification course or whatnot, right, usually they take it as an assignment, not as a learning perspective. So how do you manage it from a learning perspective, making sure that they are also learning through the process? Because ultimately the company has to adopt new technology to scale up, right? So how do you manage all this?
No, fair question. I think, and that's one of the biggest challenges and opportunities that we have, right? So the opportunity out there is that if we are able to train our workforce quickly and on these emerging technologies, we are able to differentiate ourselves from the competition, right? Show our value to uh, clients and prospects, right? So we definitely see the opportunity there. Now, the challenge here, as you rightly said, is to be able to train our folks in such a way that they are able to apply that quickly on the projects and able to show outcomes right away, right? And there's this whole mindset thing that we'll work on, right? So what we started off a year or a couple of years back, right, is the whole learning culture, right? We said it's not only about imparting or conducting a training, right? There are definitely lots of training programs available out there, where it's the MOOCs or whether it's the instructor-led trainings or virtual trainings. I mean, there's so much content out there, so there's no dearth of that. I think it's the culture that we wanted to create, right? So I think we've spent a lot of time and effort in trying to create that learning culture within the system, where everyone is empowered to learn something new, right, and then apply it in their day-to-day thing, and then they can, we always incentivize them to take up certifications, right, in a particular area, whether it's the cloud area or whether it's the DevOps area, right, or it's whether it's the AI/ML area, where you look at enhancing your skills and then implementing something which is far higher than what you would do on a day-to-day basis. So if you set the bar high for yourself, achieve that, I think that spawns a spiral effect on everyone else, right? So everyone else also wants to do as well as you. So I think that's the mindset we have tried to create, and that's worked very well for us. We have been able to showcase this talent pool to a lot of our new clients and prospects, right, and win good business from that, right? So I think that's what we are looking at, and definitely still a lot to learn for us, because the the way the training and the way it is imparted has changed a lot when you compare it to a few years back, right? The pandemic has shown that you can train the entire workforce virtually, right? which was not
Absolutely.
possible earlier, right? So I think there's a lot to come there. We want to, leverage as much as we can as we grow and scale.
Right. And, I don't know if I have observed this lately from a organization that I saw. They are what they are trying to do achieve here in India. So instead of focusing on the trainings and instead of spending, a huge that money around the trainings or whatnot, they are just focusing on building hackathons around it, right? So build solution
Hmm.
using this particular tech, build solution or this particular tech, and this hackathon will last for this, and you will get maybe promoted or whatnot, maybe get some incentives and whatnot, right? So that I saw a really good way, innovative, right? Because again, it's a good way to explore. Now, moving ahead from a vision perspective, what are as a individual, what are your vision to build out there, right? What are your how will the next 5 years gonna be?
Sure, sure. I mean, see, I think we. I remember we used to earlier when my previous stints used to talk about a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, right? With the way technology is changing and where the market is getting disrupted by technology, right? We don't think that far ahead, right? 1 to 2 years is the typical time frame that most companies are planning for, right? And then reevaluating, after that, right? So for us, the
Right.
next couple of years as a company, right, we definitely want to leverage on our capabilities in the technology or emerging technology side, right? We have set an ambitious target for us to grow 2x by 2025, right, in 2 years time. And we want to expand on our international presence. We are already in US, India, and Asia Pacific, right? We want to, with offices in Atlanta, San Francisco, Sydney, Singapore, right? But want to look at other international cities too, right? Where we can go after, right? But also leveraging on the emerging trends, right? I think as we talked about, right, we are a technology company per se, right? So for it's important to look at the emerging trends and build capabilities in that, right? Whether it's AI, whether it's cloud, whether it's DevOps, RPA, low code, no code that we talked about, right? And provide industry leading solutions to our clients, right? So I think that's been our main focus. And personally, yes, I would like us to, set the bar high in these areas, go for the outcomes that we are planning to, achieve, and then make that happen over the next 2 years, right? So that's our goal and that's our plan.
Wow. As a final note, because we talked a lot, I have a couple of more questions with me, but due to paucity of time, we cannot do it right at the moment. But as a
Sure.
final note, what would you like to share any thought with our audience who are listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a few different topics affecting our industry, right? And both from a positive and a negative standpoint, right? But I think I would say that it's the one of the most exciting times to be in the technology industry. There's so much new and innovative things that are happening all around it, and you know there's so much to explore. I would say that I would encourage everyone to broaden their horizons, expose themselves to as much as you can on the technology side or on the leadership side, because there's so much content out there that you can really absorb and learn from, right? So that's what I would like to share: is keep your eyes open, keep listening to a lot of things, keep learning from them, and always be open to wearing multiple hats, right? I think that's very important, right? You could be playing a certain role today, but in a few years that role could completely change. It's all the learnings that you've had, and the exposure you've had to different elements that will stand you in good stead, right? So I think that's what I would leave everyone with.
Wow, thank you for the kind insights that you have shared with us for this entire 20 30 minutes of duration. And again, it's my pleasure to host this podcast with you. And thank you for joining in and looking forward to collaborate more in future. And to all our audience, thank you for listening to this podcast. We are coming up with lots of initiatives. Looking forward to build more, explore more, help you more, innovate more. Thank you.